The conversation continues.
I don't believe it, and I think that's a terrible position that I am in, that I don't trust my government.
This is today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
Welcome back, folks. Welcome back. I'm Patrick Henningsen, your host. This is TNT, today's News Talk. Thank you very much for joining us here in the second hour. And I want to welcome onto the program today our guest, Mats Nilsson from Sweden. He is a political commentator, also is a historian. And I want to talk to Mats. Well, we were talking about Europe before the break. Hungary potentially being put into the naughty corner by Brussels over the issue of funding the Ukrainian project, which is getting a little bit long in the tooth, according to many people in Europe. I think even its most enthusiastic supporters 2 years ago, they just don't have the thrill is gone, as they say, in the relationship with Ukraine and Zelensky. And now we're getting into the dark part of the relationship. Mats Nilsson, bring us on up to date on the situation right now in Europe. Mats, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mats.
As always, Europe is Europe. Europe is Europe. It's always the idea of Europe it becomes reinvented basically every decade or so. And Europe never really knows what it's supposed to be. Is it supposed to be a great empire? Is it supposed to be the sum of all the mistakes made in every European country? Or is it just trying to survive a common agricultural policy without messing things up? One never knows. But right now, I think the people in Brussels with von der Leyen and her crew are trying their best to press gang Orban and Hungary into accepting the gifts to Ukraine. However, the dark horse here is Slovakia, because Orban suddenly has an ally of sorts in Fico. And he has been making, or I would say the whole government right now in Slovakia have been making some quite interesting statements. I saw that the cultural minister recently said that Slovakia was once again opening up for cultural exchange with Russia. And also the Ministry of Defense said that we're not giving anything else to Ukraine because we don't have anything ourselves anymore. So it stops there. However, I haven't heard Slovakia using any vetoes as to when it comes to making payments. But perhaps Orban can feel strengthened by this. And as we speak, I believe that foreign ministers of Ukraine and Hungary are meeting in the Transcarpathian mountain areas between the border between Hungary and Ukraine. I have yet to see what came out of that discussion, but perhaps there will be some kind of compromise. But given Orban's staunch stance on Ukraine, I would be highly surprised if Orban backs down in any serious way. I mean, he can move forward and perhaps give something, but I'm thinking that he will have an ultimate demand that says at least once a year we have to look into these gifts. I would be extremely surprised if he accepts a decision that says 4 years without any checks and balances. I think Orban will say, okay, we'll withdraw the Hungarian veto, but we have to make it a check every year. And that could be a possible compromise. That's face saving for everyone. Otherwise, these vetoes are officially there. I mean, in a legal sense, if I look at it as the legal history, they're always there to say, oh, it's to protect the small states. The veto is there to protect the interests of everyone. But we all know where it ends. The veto is just there for show. Every nation can be pushed into accepting whatever they need to accept. But the good thing about having a veto is that you can make decisions or you can make compromises that makes everyone equally dissatisfied. And I think that's the problem with the whole idea of the European Union. Everyone is always equally dissatisfied with everything. And that's why it's not going forward in any good sense. It's like you said before, the strength of the European Union was when it wasn't a union, but when it was a cooperation between nations concerning the freedom of movement for people and goods. But now, with foreign policy, with the monetary union, with the political union, it's going to break asunder. And if it happens in 1 year, 5 years, or a decade, I couldn't say, but it's definitely not going to stay intact for long.
Yeah, because what defines a country, Matt's borders, language, and culture. You have a lot of sovereign countries in Europe. They have their own culture, they have their own language, they have their own worldview, they have their own history. Some have, look at Slovakia, and you look at the Russian Orthodox Church and how deeply linked they are to classic Slovak language, and all these other countries all have different relations with Russia historically. And you can't just go and literally drop to balkanize Europe like this and cut it off from Russia. This is hugely problematic for the European Union, but maybe the Brussels and Washington thought this was possible. You're starting to see the sort of backlash from this, I think. Delayed backlash, Matt, but I'm feeling it. What do you think?
I couldn't agree more. We're dealing with nations that have 1,000 years of history that have defined them. And of course, that changes over time. I often make the parallel between Sweden and Denmark. The number one enemy of Sweden has been Denmark. We have bled more blood. We have fought the most wars we've ever fought have been against the dastardly Danes. Today we're bosom buddies. I mean, we have a love-hate relationship, of course. We make jokes about the Danes make joke about us. That's brotherly love. But I mean, just go back 200 years and we were still suspicious of each other. So what I mean, it's not about ideology. It's about global politics. It's about geopolitics. So 100 years ago, before the Russian Revolution, Swedish industry was deeply entrenched in Russia. Russia was our second greatest trading partner back before the Russian Revolution. And of course, you know all about Alfred Nobel and the interest of the Nobel industry in Baku. But also there were Ericsson and all the Swedish companies 150 years ago were involved in Russia. And there was no problem with Russia back then. The problem with Russia is now. And why is it? Because it's created. It's just like pre-World War I. The powers that be wants to create an animosity between the people so that they can use this, make a profit, and in the long run, risk a war. Because it's never they that do the dying. It's the lower and middle classes that do the dying. The elite just supply the propaganda and light the match. Unfortunately, if you light a match today, you're lighting a nuclear match, and that's the real danger. So the European Union would do good to realize that geographically we're stuck with Russia and the Eurasian continent, and Brussels should draw the conclusion from this, and if not make peace, at least take a neutral stance toward Russia and start rebuilding the relationship. I know it's a long shot, but it's what the European Union should do in order to survive. Because, as you know, the American empire is going downhill fast. And what's Europe going to do if America suddenly descends into chaos and a civil? We don't have anything. I mean, we barely have enough men to defend ourselves, barely. So it's not looking good for Europe. It's not looking good.
Back to medieval times, Matt. Invade Africa, just an idea. I'm joking, of course. Now, another boogeyman in Eurasia is the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Yep.
And we're starting to see a lot of effort to build up Iran as this big danger to the West again. I know this isn't the first time, but periodically they do this. So the situation in Gaza right now and in Palestine with Israel, this has provided a new opportunity to sort of build up Iran as a great threat to the West, to the U.S. Of course, they always regard it as a threat to Israel, but Europe as well. What's your reading on this, and how's this sort of affecting? Does this reach all the way up to Scandinavia?
Iran definitely reaches to Sweden. Sweden and Iran have had diplomatic relations for a long time. The first diplomatic relation established was actually done in 1679, when the Swedish King Charles XI sent his first emissary to Persia. But as of late, Sweden and Iran have been locked in sort of a struggle. The last good standing we had was in 2017, where there was a big delegation from Sweden with the Social Democratic Prime Minister Stefan Löfven, who traveled to Iran. But then in 2016, the year before that, Ahmed Dayali, Ahmed Dayali, Iranian-Swedish doctor and researcher at Karolinska Institutet here in Stockholm, was arrested, and he was charged with spying on the Iranian nuclear program and sentenced to death. And reports of his foreshadowed execution have been surfacing ever since, and this has been a reason for tension. Add to this that in 2021, Sweden put on trial Hamid Nouri, who was a former Iranian official who was sentenced in Sweden for committing war crimes during the Iran-Iraq War. And this was done in Sweden under the Universal Act of putting anyone on trial who's in for war crimes. Of course, we would never do it for an Israeli citizen, but with the Iranian citizen, it wasn't that much of a problem. So he's now in prison for life here in Sweden. And let me see here, 2023, yes, May of 2023 this year, Habib Shab, who was another Iranian-Swedish political activist, was executed by hanging in Iran after being accused for masterminding the 2018 attack. And then the final bit to this puzzle was that in September 2023, the Swedish diplomat Johan Floderus was arrested. And just yesterday, he was eligible for a death sentence in an Iranian court. So there is this game of convicts, if you will, between Sweden and Iran. So I'm guessing that all this, especially Floderus, is probably put on charge by Iran in order to have Nouri released. So the relationship between Sweden and Iran is strained, and it's not going to get better anytime soon. So I think when it comes to making a boogeyman out of Iran, America has a great allied right now in Sweden, because the absolute majority in Sweden finds Iran a big bully, especially for jailing the Swedish diplomat Johan Floderus. And since I haven't seen the charges, they're not available to me. I can't give any opinion about if it's substantiated or not. But I would say that Sweden is a staunch ally of anything that America wants to do against Iran. And I'm thinking a Swedish warship or the Sweden Gripen planes will be down in the Red Sea in just a few weeks' time, is my guess.
To join the coalition of the willing.
The coalition of the willing.
Yes. Yeah, Operation, was it Prosperity Guardian? Oh, there's another one now for the U.S. military. Yeah, that'll be interesting. And this is all too convenient, isn't it, Mats? When you zoom out geopolitically, Sweden has already been pushed into the fray against Russia, basically, as frontline cannon fodder against Russia to had their arm twisted to join NATO. Turkey's finally relented and said, "Yep, they're going to ratify their vote for Sweden's entry." I think Hungary's still holding out, though, Mats. But
Hungary is still holding out, but it's just a matter of time because Orban has been on record saying that Hungary will not be the last country. So I'm thinking he's coordinating with Erdogan now, who has to officially sign the paper before it can be sent to Washington. So I think Orban will make the decision in the Hungarian parliament, and then Erdogan will sign, and then I will be opening a real good bottle of whiskey and spending my night contemplating the ills of the future for Sweden. Unfortunately.
Yeah, all those big Cold War underground shelters that you have in Sweden, they're gonna have to activate all that network again, right?
Yeah, we have to do that. I'm well set up for myself and my family, but all the civil defense material has to be rebuilt from scratch. So another tons of taxpayer money will have to go to that as well.
So Iran being an ally of Russia, and all of a sudden this takes on, Sweden and the United States could definitely use Sweden with their efforts there, but it's all too convenient, isn't it? Creating these blocks on each side of this divide. So as long as somebody is an ally of somebody else, that makes them automatically an enemy of you and your allies. And are we not returning to pre-World War I great power politics now?
That's where we are, and that's the analogy I always make. And I could understand the Cold War because they were officially ideologies that were put against each other, that were quite different in its essence. Communism and semi-democratic West, and you could have these discussions. But right now, it's about money. It's about resources. It's not about a threat. It's about resources, and it's about maintaining a strategic advantage against a fictive enemy. So we are definitely right back to 1901, 1905, 1910, 1913. Take your pick. But it's a time of quickly changing allegiances, and it's a time where a slight spark can set off another Balkan war, and another Balkan war can lead to another world war. It's just going to take a few weeks now, I would say. We're not far from it, and especially considering who's the commander-in-chief in the White House. The point I'm making is we don't know who's commander-in-chief of the White House because it's quite obvious it's not Biden. I think the people around Biden have enough common sense not to allow him to be the commander-in-chief. But I don't hear anyone in America asking the million-dollar question, who's actually in charge? Is it the vice president? Is it Blinken? Who is it? Is it someone behind the green curtain? And this is the danger. And you have these unelected officials that are working. They're involved in some kind of grand deception, trying to urgently create a situation where America can remain on top. But that's a fool's errand. America is too far gone. And it's part of me it's saddened by that, because the idea of America, it had potential, but now it's gone. And what America is doing now, it's a dead empire walking, and it's lashing out, and it's dangerous. So Iran, it's Sweden, and all the rest of us, we're pawns on the great chess game. and the players they're safely tucked in behind the curtain, and if push came to shove, and God forbid a third world war started, they will relocate from behind the curtain down to their bunkers, and they won't be doing the dying. It will be the people high on nationalist propaganda who will be killing each other again. And then when the smoke clears, everyone will look at each other and say, why were we doing this? And then you and I, perhaps if we survive, can step up and say, we told you so, but what's the point? Millions of people will have died needlessly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 2024. It's you never know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I very, very difficult time tabling any predictions, even general predictions this year. And I've always been able to do it in previous years and be, fairly accurate, maybe 50+%, but not this year. Not this year. I've seen things happen, Mats, in the last couple of months that I would never thought I'd see in my lifetime, quite frankly, in the last couple of years too, but I mean, especially in the last 12 months. So, I can't imagine what surprises lay before us in the next 12 months as well. So I hope, Mats, that, people are taking some of these more fundamental points into consideration. Just before we break here, do you think there's an opportunity for some mercurial voices of sanity or common sense to emerge on the European political scene, because people are suffering, or are we in a kind of terminal sort of spiral phase here? I'm talking about the U.S. and Europe, especially Europe. What your thoughts before we break?
Well, quick take on that. Perhaps the European Parliament election can show some change, and then we might have an upcoming quick snap election in Germany as well. You have the Sarah Wagenknecht, her party, if you read about her. She's one of these new leftist individuals that may or may not be able to sway Germany, because what you need is you need a big power in Europe to break rank. It's not enough if Slovenia does it. It's not enough if Hungary does it. You need one of the bigger countries like Italy or Spain or Germany or France to do it. And I'm putting my hope to the French and German. I'm putting my hope to the farmers. I'm of a farmer heritage myself, and I often say that I would gladly put any of my down-to-earth farming old uncles to take charge of Sweden instead of the people we have today, because they have that knowledge of common sense and the feeling of a circular life, that you have to prepare for what's coming next, and everything will come back and haunt you. Unless you prepare for winter, you won't have anything. The politicians of today, they have a linear kind of thought that we're here now and then we're going here. Unfortunately, it might end in our Armageddon. So I would really enjoy kind of a circular political thinking in Europe. If one of the big countries can break rank, perhaps Germany, then there is a chance. Otherwise, I'm still right now more of a doom and gloom man than I've ever been before. So,
well, yeah, I think
sad to say.
We're looking for that. We're looking for that person or that government or that country to break ranks. And I agree with you, Matt. That would cause, I think, a cascading effect that would be irreversible. And so I hold out hope. I'm always a hopeless optimist, even at the worst of times. Matt, because
you have to be. You have to be.
Otherwise, what's the point? Honestly, yes. But Mats Nilsson, political commentator, author, historian. Thank you very much for joining us on TNT this week.
Thank you very much.
There goes Mats Nilsson, folks. You want to follow him on X, Twitter as well. We'll try to drop his account there in the TNT chat community. And just go to my feed at 21Wire. You'll see our show post. You can click on all the guests' Twitter feeds. We keep them there every day right before the show at 21Wire. So listen, let's take a break. And I want to catch up with our friend Basil Valentine on the other side for the latest. Looking forward to this conversation. I'm Patrick Henningsen, your host. You're listening and watching TNT, Today's News Talk. We'll be right back.